Hello, my name is Daniel Stewart. I was born and raised in Quebec City. My ancestors came from Donegal, Ireland, around 1820 something. I don't have the date exactly. John Stewart and Catherine McIlwain settled in the St. Patrick's settlement, which was part of the Seigneurie de Fossambeau, about 30 miles north of Quebec City. My grandfather, Alex Stewart, born in 1888, told my Aunt Clara, who's still alive, by the way, for her history project, that A. Stewart came from Dublin, fearing for his life, on a boat, on a ship, and jumped ship before getting to Grosse Hill, and hid in the mountains of St. Catherine's, Fossambeau, until the quarantine finished. Then he came out and showed himself. He lived in a shanty up on the mountain, and he hid there for the whole time. Now, I don't know what year he came, but it had to be when the Grosse Hill started, and Grosse Hill, between that date and the date that Grosse Hill closed, basically. So he was a Stewart that came later on than the first ones that were here. Now, this is a story that my grandfather told my aunt. I have no way of verifying it, and I don't know what his first name is. All I know is that he was fearing for his life, and he left Dublin on a ship to get here. So that's my Stewart ancestors came from Donegal around 1820. John Stewart and Catherine McIlwain. They settled up north of Quebec City, about 30 miles north, in the St. Patrick's settlement, which was part of the Seigneurie de Fossambeau. They pioneered and lived there in log cabins. Basically, later on, my great-grandfather, who was Presbyterian, by the way, they were all Presbyterians, converted to Catholicism because I suspect he wanted to marry Bridget Powell, my great-grandmother. And the Powells came from Waterford, Ireland, and they were Catholics, and they came through Grosse Hill. And this was confirmed to me by my cousin, who is still alive. He's quite elderly, but he's still alive. So, so that's the Grosse Hill connection on the Stewart Powell family, and there was no big story to say. They just came through the Grosse Hill, had their time there, and moved on to what is St. Catherine's Port-Neuf, and which in those days was part of the St. Patrick's settlement earlier, because the names keep changing. It was St. Patrick's settlement, became St. Catherine de Port-Neuf, became Shannon, and et cetera, et cetera. So the municipalities keep changing names, but it's the same area all the time. So they were Catholics, and they settled there. So the little story behind the marriage is that my great-grandfather, William Stewart, married Bridget Powell. He's Presbyterian, she's Catholic. So they go to the Catholic church, and they get baptized. And the priest wrote on the baptismal certificate for my great-grandfather and his father that they were both saved from heresy. Which is kind of strange. But anyways, that's the way things were back then. So that's the story.